would you say that most of the time in your work, if the images, if there is action in the film, the camera tends to be still, whereas the moving camera tends to film something that's usually quite still? In other words, you either have the movement in the image or the movement of the image?
Absolutely. And those are the two kinds of movement that one can have. One can have movement inside the image, and one can have movement in front of the image. And I'm very interested in how the movement inside the image, that is the track, the pan, the zoom, the dolly, in a way are equally transformative than the movement in front of the image. So I think it's really, yeah, these two types of movements are in a way what the camera can do and what film can do. And it's also, you know, in my own work I think about the difference between appearance, the appearance of something, and the sort of ontological becoming of something. And of course in the cinematic theatrical tradition, the theatrical tradition of the film or cinema is in this idea of becoming something, a transformation of a subjectivity, that, you know, the actor who learns a lesson, who gets transformed by something. And in the pictorial tradition, it's about subjects appearing as something. You're having the appearance, and for that, I'm very, you know, I think that the movement inside the image is about how that appearance can form pictorially. I think that's what. Maybe any questions since we have a few.
I want to ask you one more, and that has to do with length. Not most, but a lot of your films were decided, the length of a lot of your films was decided upon the length of canister of film, right? Mm-hmm. So now that you're moving away from 35mm and walking into high definition RED, right? Is that right?
I've used the red a lot. Yeah.
Right. How are you going to measure the time? Or is this something that you're not really concerned about?
The question of the length of a film is, you know, is something which I think every artist or filmmaker has to deal with right from the beginning. Because I think, as I was suggesting before, because film is about temporality and about time, or is about time, one of the first questions, there's certain key ontological questions that one has to sort of, you know, well, there's certain key questions which are ontological, let's say, and that is, where should this film begin, where should it end, and how long should it be? And that's kind of like, you can't get away from that. And for the audience, it's also, these questions are equally important. So I was aware that if I wanted to work in the gallery museum space, and I'm interested in this pictorial tradition, one thing I knew is that films shouldn't be too long. And so I had to come up with an idea, you know, I never thought about this consciously, but ex post facto I can say that I had to come up with an idea of how long should a film be, and then luckily there is, I have been working on 35mm and still work at 35mm. You have this commercial roll which is 4 minutes long, so it gives you an idea, well that's already, you know, something, you know, I can start, and then then the question of where to begin, well I could begin at the beginning of the roll, and I could end at the end of the roll, and that also, so right away three problems were solved. The length, 4 minutes, the beginning at the beginning and at the end, and that sort of served me well. I still think like that. Even now, I think a film should probably be 4 minutes, and then sometimes it's a lot shorter. I make films as short as 1.5 minutes. And sometimes it's a lot longer, like the one we watched today, which is 40 minutes. But generally speaking, I start with that idea that a film should be 4 minutes, and just because it gives me a structure to work with, and it gives me something to knock against before I decide it's wrong. I think the question about working with digital forms, which I do now, is that one runs the risk of returning to the great problem of early video, which I learned very early on. That early video taught me how to be too long, right? You know, because this kind of performance basis, and these films sometimes were endless. You know, so the problem with the HD digital forms is that there isn't a natural length that one could say belongs to that form, and I'm still sort of struggling with trying to think with that. But I still think that, you know, if you're in a gallery, in a museum, it's not a cinema, therefore that length probably needs to be around maximum 4 or 5 minutes, because that's the length of time that I think that a viewer can experience comfortably, physically comfortably, can experience a work and even have time to see it again if they want to. So I'm a strong believer that the gallery and the museum is not the place to show films that are endlessly long. I think that the cinemas were built for that, and they work pretty well.